In 2013, the work of LaRouchePAC and our associates occurred within the framework of shaping universal history. We have continually driven citizens, leaders of the United States and other nations, to take part in the most important battle today, the fight for the freedom of mankind from oligarchism. We celebrated multiple anniversaries over 2013 that reflected our continued commitment to that fight, from FDR's passage of Glass-Steagall 80 years ago to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in the midst of his battle against a treasonous faction inside the U.S. government and the intelligence and security establishment. We celebrated the 30th anniversary of President Ronald Reagan adopting Lyndon LaRouche's Strategic Defense Initiative as policy, which pointed to a resolution of the Cold War and a pathway toward a revolution in international scientific and technological advancement. The parameters of our fight have been immense, but our advances have been tangible. For this week's LPAC in Action, we present the major battles we have fought, the ground we have gained, and what supporters and members of LaRouchePAC did to shape history in 2013. By the May 16th 80th anniversary of Franklin Roosevelt's passage of the Glass-Steagall Act, LaRouchePAC had reached a high point in the fight to reenact that legislation. We waged that fight in the streets and offices of Washington, D.C. In 40 state capitals across the country, state legislative bodies debated resolutions to force Congress to pass Glass-Steagall. 26 states introduced legislation in 2013, and 4 states passed those resolutions. By mid-June, we had put the Wall Street opponents of Glass-Steagall on the defensive. Glass-Steagall's sponsors in the Delaware State House came under vicious attack by J.P. Morgan, threatening to pull J.P. Morgan jobs out of the state if the resolution went forward. Prepared to fight dirty, J.P. Morgan met the numerous state-level backers of the Glass-Steagall Act at the August National Conference of State Legislators in Atlanta, Georgia. Under pressure from mafia-style threats, the backers of the Atlanta resolution were defeated, and J.P. Morgan held the field. Yet as the nation was gearing up at the state level to press for federal action, LaRouchePAC was receiving dozens of international letters of support from Japan, Ireland, Germany, France, Spain, Mexico, Italy, Switzerland, Greece, from legislators, parliamentarians, financial officials, professors, journalists, and many others. In 2013, multiple Glass-Steagall bills were introduced into the Italian parliament. In Switzerland, a global financial capital, the lower house of parliament voted for a strict Glass-Steagall banking separation, and a handful of City of London insiders made their support for Glass-Steagall public. While LaRouchePAC activists mobilized around the Captor-Jones House Bill 129 to restore Glass-Steagall, the Senate dropped a bombshell on Wall Street on July 11th when Elizabeth Warren and John McCain sponsored the 21st Century Glass-Steagall Act, S. 1282. However, 2013 did not find a leader in Congress with the guts and tenacity to move the legislation all the way to the floor. And for that, the U.S. economy declined further, faster. 2013 saw the largest municipal bankruptcy in United States history when the city of Detroit filed for Chapter 9 on July 18th. The city government had already been effectively nullified under what city representatives termed a financial dictatorship of emergency financial manager Kevin Orr, appointed in March by Governor Rick Snyder.
Detroit has been in a depression for decades now. The country may have been in a recession, but Detroit has been in depression. The banks have plundered and pillaged. They're making millions of dollars off the misery of the city of Detroit. The fascist state is here in Detroit in that we don't have democracy. We vote for a mayor who has no power. We vote for a council who has no power. And yes, we vote for a school board who has no power. And we've been in waiting, and this was supposed to be an emergency. But what we find is that once the dictators come in, they don't leave.
I think what you've got with Detroit is not an honest policy of trying to fix the finances of the city of Detroit, but you've got a policy of genocide. And it's very clear cut, and that's why Detroit right now is a certain type of test case for what's going to happen to the American population. What they're doing in filing for bankruptcy is really just a continuation or an acceleration of the rate of death that's been created by having a policy which has been upheld under the Obama administration, basically having a bonanza for the G-SIFI, too big to jail banks at the expense of the population, who is sacrificed by forcing a commitment to saving their gambling debts by the city of Detroit in this case.
By March, the transatlantic financial system hit a new low when the European Troika attempted to steal the deposits of citizens of Cyprus in the test run of a new economic model called bail-in. After an in-depth investigation, LaRouchePAC published the shocking revelation that bail-in is a key feature of the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010. Title II, the Orderly Liquidation Authority, made the United States part of an international scheme to bail in the debts of insolvent Wall Street banks and non-banks. In other words, institutions' illegitimate debts, deemed systemically important, like derivatives, will be paid off with the blood of the American people. Just prior to the congressional recess into the new year, the Wall Street-friendly provisions of the Dodd-Frank Act's Volcker Rule were made public. As a rebuff to the administration's Wall Street-sponsored legislation, Representative Walter Jones of North Carolina and Representative John Tierney of Massachusetts introduced the companion legislation in the House of Representatives for the Senate's 21st Century Glass-Steagall Act. This final salvo forced the debate back to Glass-Steagall, which is the issue at hand for the second session of the 113th Congress. When Barack Obama was sworn in for his second term in January, he made his intention clear that he sought to disregard congressional checks and balances and make policy at the level of the executive. This was evident in the recess appointments taken up by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, in the Environmental Protection Agency provisions passed outside of congressional review, but most significantly, in Obama's war policy. Beginning with an emphatic administration cover-up of the events in Benghazi, Libya, the White House forced a slew of false pretenses to embroil the United States in yet another Middle East war in Syria, from humanitarian intervention to chemical weapons red lines, and the continued material support for Syrian rebels known to be working with al-Qaeda. The sudden shift in U.S. policy came from Great Britain, of all places, when the Parliament voted against Prime Minister David Cameron allying with Obama in an overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. With that, Obama was forced to put the decision to the U.S. Congress, despite his profession that he was prepared to go to war without their consent. The proud moment for the American people and their members of Congress came when the nation successfully defeated an out-of-control Obama presidency and, for the time, defeated the threatened outbreak of World War III. This successful American resistance among the citizens and high-ranking military and diplomatic personnel has been a major factor in the recent rapprochement with Iran, for example. And in this incredibly fluid geostrategic transformation, LaRouchePAC's tireless demand for the release of the 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission's report is another leading issue of the new session of the 113th Congress. On December 3rd, Representatives Walter Jones and Stephen Lynch introduced H-Res 428, calling on the President to release the redacted 28 pages kept classified by both the Bush and Obama administrations. According to members of Congress who have read those 28 pages, they contain hard evidence of the foreign sponsorship of the September 11, 2001 attacks.
Obama came into office. Now, obviously, so much of what we are living through today continues to be part of the aftermath of the September 11th, 2001 attacks. And of course, that includes the September 11th, 2012 attack in Benghazi, Libya, which resulted in the murder of the U.S. ambassador and 2 other State Department officers. And we know, again, that the original 9/11 operation was financed in part directly by leading figures within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That includes the then ambassador of Saudi Arabia to the United States, Prince Bandar bin Sultan. A joint congressional committee thoroughly investigated the 9/11 attack, and in their final report produced a 28-page chapter that detailed the role of Prince Bandar, that detailed the role of officials of the Saudi Ministry of Defense in financing the activities of at least 2 of the leading hijackers who participated in the 9/11 plot. In fact, they were the first 2 hijackers to come to the United States, and they really were key organizers of the whole effort. The 28-page chapter that itemized direct funding by Prince Bandar and others in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia governing structures of the 9/11 hijackers was suppressed by President Bush. And when President Obama came into office in January of 2009, although he met with families of the 9/11 attack, either survivors or family members of those killed in the 9/11 attack, and promised them that he would declassify that 28-page chapter as a starting point for getting to the bottom of who was ultimately behind that heinous crime, Obama reversed himself, and to this day has been complicit in continuing the Bush administration's cover-up of those 28 pages. Former Senator Bob Graham has taken the point in trying to get those 28 pages released, and more recently, Congressman Walter Jones, a Republican from North Carolina, has sent a letter to Congressman Mike Rogers, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, asking his assistance in declassifying those 28 pages. And Congressman Jones has called for public hearings of the House Intelligence Committee to get to the bottom of those 28 pages, the evidence they present, and the larger question of the Saudi involvement in all of the major incidents of international terrorism that have plagued the world over the last decades.
LaRouchePAC and those most familiar with the case are focused on the role of Saudi Arabia, including leading members of the royal family and Saudi intelligence, in financing 9/11 and playing host to ongoing terrorist activity menacing and destabilizing nations throughout the world. Immediately after H-Res 428 was filed, a U.S. Court of Appeals Second Circuit reopened the 2005 case against the Saudis filed by 9/11 families. The court agreed that charges could be brought against the Saudi royal family, overturning the protection they enjoyed under diplomatic immunity. Lyndon LaRouche's indictment of the Saudis is being reciprocated now globally. As of August, the leadership of the Russian government was receiving direct threats from Saudi intelligence chief and 9/11 financier Prince Bandar bin Sultan, who warned President Vladimir Putin that if Russia didn't back off their support for Syrian President Assad, Bandar would not be able to guarantee Saudi anti-terror support. In the context of last month's 2 back-to-back bombings by Chechen groups in Volgograd, southern Russia, we repeat Bandar's warning to Putin, leaked in August to the London Guardian. I can give you a guarantee to protect the Winter Olympics next year. The Chechen groups that threaten the security of the Games are controlled by us.
But the point is, the implication is that the Saudi government actually organized, together with the British government itself, organized 9/11. And they organized it against the United States. So the point is that what the court has ruled is simply the court will no longer allow the concealment of the evidence on this matter, because the Saudi state acted unlawfully against the U.S. government. It has no right to seek protection from prosecution by the U.S. government and by the U.S. agencies and by the people whose families were killed and prosecuted by this for all these years. So you just go back to the beginning of the young Bush administration, through Obama so far, through Obama's first term, and now he's into his second term. And these presidents have covered up mass murder against the United States and its people by the Saudi government. And with the complicity, which we know, with the complicity of the British government, the British Empire. Now, with this proceedings through the legal process, in the court process, which now lifted, there's no longer a ban on this issue. The ban is lifted, and things are going to open up widely. And I think that both immediately the current president is obviously guilty. And now if he does not concede his guilt, I think the gate is immediately opened to throw him out of the presidency right now.
In the fall of 2013, under the prompting of Lyndon LaRouche, the LaRouchePAC scientific research team, The Basement, produced an upgraded program for reviving the world economy, Nuclear Nuwapa 21, Gateway to the Fusion Economy. Under the self-inflicted disintegration of the transatlantic system, Mr. LaRouche emphasized that only by focusing on the highest energy flux density technologies and committing the nation to the greatest physical economic challenges was there a pathway out of decay and into the future. The keystone of that report is the central role of fusion power as a driver for a massive development program stretching from the Mississippi River west all the way up through the Bering Strait, across the Pacific Ocean, and deep into Asia, providing the factor of growth to overcome the depths of the present crisis. Through the numerous meetings LaRouchePAC representatives held with high-level collaborators across the country and around the world, The Basement presented the Nuwapa 21 Continental Water Management Design. They presented plans for a tunnel under the Bering Strait, connecting Alaska and Siberia with high-speed rail, the development of the resource potentials of the Arctic, and other projects like the Craw Canal, which resonated deep within governments throughout Asia. The publication and nationwide mass circulation of the Thermonuclear Nuwapa 21 Special Report by 21st Century Science and Technology put this challenge to the American people: either recommit itself to scientific progress and economic growth in cooperation with other great national powers, especially in the Trans-Pacific, or fail to take that on and see a sudden, murderous fall in the ability of the human species to support the levels of population we currently have. The February 15, 2013 surprise explosion of a small asteroid over the Russian Ural Mountains near the city of Chelyabinsk was both a wake-up call and a confirmation of the warnings being issued by many officials in Russia and by Lyndon LaRouche and his associates in the United States. Starting in late 2011, officials of the Russian government proposed a new evolution of LaRouche's original concept of the Strategic Defense Initiative program by calling for a joint program of cooperation on both missile defense and planetary defense between the United States and Russia, offering to replace the current war danger with an offer to collaborate in taking on a new challenge that threatens the entire planet, the danger of asteroids and comet impacts. The offer was referred to as a Strategic Defense of Earth, the SDE. Following the Russian government's initial offers, the LaRouche movement has still to this day been the only organization to promote and support this proposed strategic shift. This year saw other explosive developments, not the least of which was a work of Edward Snowden, releasing the hard facts of just how pervasive the NSA's espionage is, and how far out of bounds the Obama administration's imperial diktat has reached, both at home and abroad. Yet with the fervor of constantly breaking, urgent political developments, and the visible crumbling of policies that have been dominant on this planet for decades, LaRouchePAC's international collaborators at the Schiller Institute, under the leadership of Chairwoman Helga Zepp-LaRouche, enunciated a vision for the future of mankind in a year-long series of conferences titled A New Paradigm for Humanity.
The Fighting Creed was the one announced by John Quincy Adams, 6th President, but then Secretary of State in 1821, and is addressed to Congress. We do not go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. The glory of a republic is liberty. The glory of an empire is domination and control.
No one likes to really consider what slavery means anymore because we feel like we've gone beyond it. And yet, the nature of slavery is money. It's monetarism. See, the empires are always predicated on the value of money as opposed to the value of humans.
So I would say we must be fruitful and multiply. We must replenish the solar system and have dominion over, and subdue it, and have dominion over all that moveth therein.
All of you here in this room and those people who are participating in other ways in this conference, you are the ones from whom it largely depends.
Man is the most powerful force for changing and shaping the potential power and organization and energy of planet Earth and beyond. Now, how do we do this?
My last point concerns China, Russia, and Central Asia's cooperation in this region. And this kind of cooperation could change the picture of world economy.
But that's not the American way. And as Lyndon LaRouche demonstrates what an American is, you fight for principle no matter what the odds. The other day, Lynn said, "I'd rather be right than be successful."
I appeal to you, the American people, to once again save the world from fascism. We have a world drama, but it does not take place on a stage. It's real history. And we, our organization, are the main actors. So let's make sure it does not end as a tragedy, but that it is the beginning of a new paradigm, of a second American Revolution, and a new renaissance for all of mankind.
The question of productivity is...
In 2013, LaRouchePAC and our supporters fought to transform history. We gained ground that we must hold and extend in 2014. If you took action with us in 2013, what you have seen is what you made happen. Stay involved. State legislators are now coming back into session. LaRouchePAC in Washington, D.C. will continue meeting with your members of Congress on your behalf. Organize your friends to contribute and to follow us. LaRouche Policy Committee member Keisha Rogers is campaigning for U.S. Senate in Texas, and there are other campaigns up and coming. We have proven that we can alter the course of events. We have forced the enemies of mankind to react to our initiatives, and we are in a greater strategic position entering this new year than we have been for a long time. From LaRouchePAC to all our supporters and followers, happy 2014, the year to do more.